So today we're talking about mitosis, and mitosis is a form of asexual reproduction. Remember, asexual reproduction is where you have an organism that can reproduce all by itself by making a genetically identical copy. Our I can statements will be able to list the stages of mitosis in order, explain what happens in each stage, and also explain why cells go through mitosis. Mitosis is a type of cell division, which means the cell is dividing and making a new cell. Mitosis is part of something called the cell cycle. The cell cycle is the regular process or sequence of growth and division that cells go through. So it's a cell growing to maturity and then the process of dividing. There are three parts to the cell cycle: interphase, mitosis, and cytokinesis. Interphase happens before the cell actually does any dividing. Most of the cells in your body are in this interphase. During interphase, the cell is basically just growing, maturing to its full size. It also will double in size because during this time is when all the DNA that's in the nucleus of your cells will replicate or make a copy. Replication is that process by which all of the DNA makes an identical copy of itself so that it will have an identical set of instructions for the new cell. Basically, interphase is what the cell is doing as it is preparing to get ready to do the dividing into two new cells. Once interphase is complete, the cell will undergo something called mitosis, and this is where we're going to spend most of our time. Mitosis is used for two reasons. One is for growth. So I'll make a statement, and I told the kids in school this, that I know that you know this, but when you really sit and you think about it, it's really amazing to think that every single person started out as one cell, one tiny cell, and then that cell divides into two, and then two into four, and four into eight, and eight into 16, and 32, and 64, and you get the idea. So the cell just keeps dividing and dividing and dividing, and you keep growing. So when you're first starting out inside mom, your cells are going through mitosis wildly. And even after you're first born, your body is doing mitosis like crazy when you're a baby. You're growing a lot. And the same thing with like a puppy. If you have a big dog now and you got it as a puppy, think back how small it was. And so the cells in that puppy have to be dividing and dividing and dividing so it grows and grows and grows. And most of you are not done growing, and your cells are still going to keep dividing for growth. Now, as you get older, your cells kind of slow down on that growth process, but it still allows for growth. The second is to replace dead or worn out cells. So I'm sure everybody's cut their hand or you skinned your knee, or some of you might have even broken a bone. When your body has cells that are damaged or that are dead, it has to replace them. If you ever scratched your arm and skin falls off, you got to replace the skin. So you need new skin cells, new bone cells, new blood cells to replace the dead, worn out ones. During mitosis, one cell will divide into two. Mitosis is the process where the nucleus divides into two nuclei. Nuclei is the plural form of nucleus. One copy of DNA is put into each of the new daughter cells. If you remember, during interphase, the DNA copied. So during mitosis, it splits that DNA equally so that each cell gets the exact same set. There are four parts to mitosis: prophase, metaphase, anaphase, and something called telophase. And we'll look at those four parts. During prophase, the nucleus is going to, all the DNA in the nucleus is going to coil up and form these rods. They actually look like fuzzy X's that we call chromosomes. Each rod is an exact copy. So the DNA coils up and organizes itself into something called chromosomes. A chromosome is going to be both of those fuzzy rods put together and held together. It looks like a big fuzzy X. If you look at half of the X, or one of the rods, we call that a chromatid. During metaphase, all of the chromosomes line up across the center or the middle of the cell. If you look at the picture, you can see all the X's and a line right across the middle. I help kids remember this by saying metaphase starts with M and middle starts with M. So if you can remember meta and middle, you should be good. The chromosomes get there by these things called spindle fibers. Those are those lines that are coming out of the poles of each end of the cell. They grab the chromosomes and pull them to the middle. They line up in the middle like this for organization so that they're organized and ready to go to divide. The next phase is called anaphase. And during anaphase, that little centromere, that's the thing in the center of the X that holds it together, that breaks down and splits apart. And each of the chromatids, so remember a chromatid is one rod of the X, they separate from each other, and one chromatid goes to one end of the cell, the other chromatid moves to the other end of the cell. So they separate and move to opposite sides. You can see that this is in preparation to divide into two. The cell will even begin to stretch and pull apart, and you can kind of see where it's going to divide into two. During telophase, and I should go back and mention, we'll go back one and mention, during anaphase, when it splits and the chromosomes move apart, a good hack to help you remember, anaphase is ana starts with A, and apart or away starts with A. So in anaphase, the chromosomes move away, A and A. In telophase, the nucleus divides in two. So you can remember that telo and two. They both start with T. The chromosomes will stretch back apart and uncoil and turn back into chromatin, the little stringy strands of DNA. And you get a nuclear membrane that forms around each nucleus. So you can see in the pictures down here that you have two nuclei that are exactly alike. And that ends mitosis. At the very end of the cell cycle is when cytokinesis happens. And cytokinesis is when the cell membrane will pinch to form two new cells. In an animal cell, the membrane just pinches closed and bada bing, you got two. They call these two new cells daughter cells. They have identical chromosomes to the parent, identical DNA, identical organelles. Everything is exactly as it was in the original first cell. But a plant cell's a little bit different. In a plant cell, remember you have that cell wall. So in a plant cell, something called a cell plate grows across the middle of the cell during cytokinesis. That cell plate stays attached, and new membranes and new cell walls will grow on the inside of each part of the cell plate. And that's what allows those plant cells to stay connected together and give it structure and support. So in an animal cell, there's no cell wall, so the membrane just pinches. But in a plant cell, a cell plate grows across there. And here's just, and in my notes folder on the Polaris page, you're going to see a link to these notes, and you can watch some of these videos if you want to. And there's some comics. On this one, we're just looking at and putting these in order. So give it a try, see what you can do, and then pause the video, and then go ahead and check your work. And here's what you should have come up with. Starts with interphase and all the DNA is just copying. And then in prophase, the chromosomes become visible and you see the X's. Meta, they're in the middle. Anaphase, remember A for ana, A for apart, the chromosomes split apart or move away from each other. And then telophase, you have two nuclei, two circles in here. So you have two, if we could say nucleuses, we would, but we call them nuclei. I hope this video works well for you. Please let me know if there are any problems.